Hey, we're having beer with dinner tonight, right? No, I really wanted wine tonight. No, I really want beer tonight. No, wine. Wine. No, beer. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on, guys. I think we might be able to find some common ground here and find some wines that beer lovers can enjoy too. Ready to find out? Hi there, I'm Jacqueline for Vero, and we go around the world searching out wild and scarce wines to introduce to our US customers and businesses. And some of these hard-to-find wines will slake the thirst of beer drinkers. But you have to know what to look for. Wine and beer. So dissimilar, yet so similar at the same time. As a core definition, both are alcoholic beverages that are crafted by allowing yeasts to eat carbohydrates that are present in the raw materials, grapes or grains, and they produce alcohol in return. However, that's where it ends, because even these fermentations start differently. While the sugar-rich wine grapes can start fermentation raw, even spontaneously with just the native yeasts that are found on the skins, the starch that is abundant in beer grains needs a little help. And it takes place in the form of jump-starting it with roasting and cooking the grains. So, seeing that these differences in production methodology, as well as the raw materials, grapes versus hops and malt, it's understandable to see these as two very different beverages. But similar tasting approaches can even be taken between beer and wine, with evaluations of bouquet and palate being made by sommeliers of both types. However, as we alluded to in the beginning of the video, there are points of intersection where beer and wine overlap. The trick is to recognize these points and to find that thing that will bridge the two worlds. And while this bridge is not necessarily world peace, it's definitely a step in the right direction. So what characteristics, production methods, and types of wine can satisfy both beer and wine lovers and make them happy? Let's start with the most obvious. We want to look for similar flavors and textures between the two. Of course, things like frizzy bubbles come to mind with the carbonation in beer. But we don't necessarily want the refined bubbles of a champagne, but rather a pleasant bubble of something like an ancestral method or pet nat sparkling wine. Those types of wines also have flavors that can be very similar to those of the beers. And it's these flavors that are so important. They give us the immediate sensation and immediate recollection of what we could be drinking. And while wines and beers have such varied flavors across the board, what we want is to find, again, these points of intersection, those flavor profiles that have the same flavor notes, like fresh citrusy fruits, but also think of herbs and herbaceousness that you can get from some super hoppy beers. You also want good levels of a crisp acidity to help keep the wine lively and quaffable. Think like a refreshing beer. Looking across these points, often more natural style wines like the pet nats we mentioned earlier, and wines made with a native yeast fermentation can be good choices to start off with, as they will often have less traditional flavors that are more beer-like. And as well, because beer does not have the same tannic structure that wines can have, it is important to look out for wines with low tannins. While this isn't a problem for white wines, if you ever consider a red wine, that should be a consideration. So what wines do we serve to those people at the party that say they only like beer? Let's have a look at a few, and we're going to start first with our pet nats. Pet nats made with the Glera or Prosecco grape, like Codelbalt's Codola and Zanon's Il Colfondo, have a different vibe to your traditional Seccos, thanks to the aging on the lees or the yeast sediment that is left in the bottle. And if you're like that, you can go for something like Zanon's Bosquera from a rare, hard-to-find grape, which has these fantastic savory and umami type flavors. And that can add a little touch of depth to your wine glass. But pet nats aren't just white wines. They come in red too, like a pet nat Lambrusco. So we're going to think of Frignano's Scarbato and Scurone that have a lively fizz and fruity flavors, similar to some of your favorite beers, especially if your beer drinker is a fan of funky and tart lambic beers. Another perk of pet nat wines, they're usually lower in alcohol than traditional wines, which brings us to another point of intersection and similarity with beers. And for last, let's go for a more unique taste. For those that love sour beers or even kombucha, you can try La Magliosa's Saturnale Bianco, a minimum intervention natural wine made with skin contact, or an orange wine. It's a non-bubbly still wine that is fun and funky and a great way to test out a beer drinker. And don't discount more traditional style wines, especially when they come from a place like the Czech Republic that is renowned for its beers. After all, they've been designed with the palate of the beer-loving nation in mind, and they might have some residual sugars that help to soften the acidity and make it a little bit more beer-like. And if you weren't taking notes, it's okay, because all of this is summarized in our article on our site, verovino.com, and I've linked that down below in the description. But to make sure you don't miss out on more articles like this and videos like this, subscribe to our newsletter that I'll also have linked down below. And this will keep you up to date on all articles, videos, and new wines that we find. As well, you can find all the wines I mentioned previously and many other delicious, hard-to-find wines in the Vero shop. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like below. Let us know in the comments, what is your favorite wine to serve to beer lovers? I'll see you in the next video, which could be this one, if you want to learn more about how pet nat wines are made. Bye!